Yeah, it's the main event. We got Sean, the Wild Man Strickland. That's what I'm calling him. He said he wants a new nickname. Ironically, it's kind of similar to Tarzan. But hey, I'm calling him Sean, the Wild Man Strickland. That's what I'm calling him. He's the seventh-ranked middleweight. I mean, I think he's undefeated at middleweight over the past couple of years. And he's fighting Jack the Joker Manson, plus 180 underdog, although he's the higher-ranked fighter coming at the sixth-ranked middleweight. And I mean, I was pretty damn high on Strickland coming into this one. It was obviously kind of a striker versus grappler matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, Hermansson has the dope skill set. Strickland's another guy we've been high on. I mean, we've
super
been,
high on, and we love his story too about the motorcycle crash and all that. Like super marketable from that.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, we really like Strickland. I mean, Strickland was building some steam. You know, a lot of people wondering how he's a win or two away from a title shot. And that was kind of being talked about in the lead up to this one, which, getting a win over Hermansson would have done a lot, to bolster that claim. Especially, a lot of people were viewing it as with Brunson Cannonier coming up in a couple of days. It's like out of those four guys, if somebody had like a stellar like performance, could maybe be the difference as to who gets the next title shot. Now Strickland. Let me see here. Yeah, he's coming he's beaten Brennan Allen, Uriah Hall, and now Hermansson. It's an impressive, little run in the division. I mean, the only quote unquote easy fight, and I don't know if it's easy, but it's not on the same level as those other names that is listed, was Jotko, and he pieced him up. Now I gotta say, this is probably the most. Actually, let me ask you a question, and we'll dive into round by round. I want to answer kind of a broad stroke question because now that the fight's been a couple of days since the fight, I've heard a lot of people's opinions about this fight. Was this a competitive fight? Like, was this a close fight in your eyes as you were watching it live? Or maybe you can factor in you've had a couple of days to think about it.
I didn't think it was close at all, to be quite honest. I felt like Strickland was literally doing whatever he wanted and was just so conservative that he didn't show out necessarily, but Jack Hermansson, I didn't think ever had a chance to win.
I felt the exact same way, and I can't tell you how many shows and blogs and stuff I've read just talked about how competitive this was, and it does end up being a split decision on the official scorecard,
which is so wild.
It's almost like gaslighting me to like not believe my own like eyes. It's like no, like I mean, and so we'll get to it because I mean I'll understand. I had Strickland winning every round. Now maybe I am tripping on that.
No, I think it's crazy that two judges have 49-46 because they gave different rounds to Hermansson. Those judges.
No, and like I said, yeah, this isn't necessarily a fight that I think we have to go round for round on because as we just said, we gave every round to Strickland. I do want you to kind of get into the judges' scorecards here in a second so we can kind of like argue with it, right? Like pick it apart.
Yeah.
And then but also I want to make kind of one more broad stroke argument before we get into the scorecards is that's not just because I gave every round to Strickland does not mean that Hermansson did not have success in this fight. And I think that is kind of like some people maybe don't view that as like mutually exclusive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think people struggle with that. We're like, well, Hermansson, did this and it had some success here, so I can't give him every round to Strickland because it makes it look more lopsided than it is. But that's not how you should be scoring.
That's not how that works.
Each round is a vacuum, right?
Right, exactly.
Who did more? Like, just because Strickland did more than Hermansson in a round, like, that doesn't mean that, like, Hermansson did nothing. Like, more.
Right.
I think every single round, Strickland did a little bit more than Hermansson. Now, was it by a mile, or were they 10-8 rounds, or was it an ass whooping, or no. They were competitive rounds, but I think even the close rounds, I gave to Strickland.
Yeah,
that's
me too.
not to say there weren't close rounds. So it's like I see how people like say like, oh, this was such a competitive fight. This was a close fight. I mean, A, this fight was kind of a snoozer, but B, it was competitive, but it wasn't close on paper. I think both can be true, and I think that's what like people are kind of picking aside. This was close. It wasn't close. I think it was close, but the scorecard I think was still 50-45, which maybe I'm contradicting that.
Well, I think certain instances of the fight were close, but I think as an overall fight, it's not that close, right? Because I think, in my opinion, Strickland wins every round. And, like, sure, maybe he wins round 3 or round 1 or round 5 a little closer than he wins 2 or 4, in my opinion. Like, I think 2 and 4, he very clearly won, no questions, like, was rather dominant in those rounds. 1, 3, and 5, you could argue, was more of like a give and take 50-50, just him being smarter and almost outpointing Hermansson, right?
Well, and hear me out, right? Here's how I'm looking at this. Like, so in the first 2 rounds, Hermansson was trying to take down Strickland and failing miserably, like didn't get that close, and he's known as the grappler. And so, I mean, are you giving Hermansson the rounds in which he was failing at what he was attempting and like failing pretty badly at what he was supposed to have the advantage in? Is that the rounds you're giving Hermansson, or are you telling me that he outstruck Strickland in 3 through 5? Right, like
Right.
You're saying one of those 2 things. Like, you have to be, or else you're disagreeing with your own like scorecard, right? Like that's one of those 2 things, and neither one of those are true. I mean, I guess it's true that Hermansson failed miserably in rounds 1 and 2 at all grappling exchanges, and then, or I mean, are you just gonna look me in the eye and tell me that he outstruck Strickland 3 through 5? Like, not a chance.
Yeah, right. And like numbers would back that up. And then I feel like even the like the way that each guy approached the 4th and 5th rounds, like, showed you Strickland was ahead, cruising, doing what he needed to. Hermansson's corner was telling him, you got to do this, you got to do this. Like, they knew who was losing. You know what I'm saying? Like, when the fighter's corner knows they're losing, I think that's rather obvious as to how that fight's going.
And at one point in the 5th round, the live odds were -5,000.
Minus 5,000. Right.
I mean, that means like more than a slam dunk. Like, that means like, I mean,
right.
Like, I don't even know what analogy you want to meet, but like, I guarantee, like, -5,000. Like, I mean, Shevchenko. I mean, you
don't even see that for them.
No, that's what I'm saying. So Vegas had Strickland -5,000. Like, that's like bet your house. I mean, that's.
Well, I think Vegas had him up 4 rounds to nothing if they were scoring.
As did we. You would have to give him -5 like that. So there's kind of some empirical data that support us. But I swear, you go hit the YouTubes and the elbows and the manias and goddamn, you think that this was fucking, Erosa Peterson.
Well, funny enough, man, like, one judge scored round 5 to Hermansson. One judge scored round 3.
I gotta say, I have in my notes that I had Hermansson's best round and like the closest round to win.
I thought it was the closest for sure.
Me too. Yeah, I thought, yeah, for sure. Just wanted to say that.
Another judge had Hermansson winning round 3, which I guess maybe, I don't know. It felt more like, I thought like, 3 was pretty.
Hermansson literally couldn't touch Strickland in 3. 3 was the round where Strickland looked like goddamn Floyd Mayweather. Like,
I know. And somehow a judge gave him 3. Like, I don't understand it at all. And gave the other rounds to Strickland.
One of the arguments I heard fucking Chael making, which I disagreed with him, but just like hearing somebody make the argument, is that Strickland was on his back foot a lot in this fight.
But he's a defensive striker.
He was winning, and I think he even moving backwards, he was landing more strikes, and Hermansson was having no success. So I think it was like a cage control argument. Is the only, like, if you had to build a lawyer ball case for it, the cage control argument is like the only argument that I'll even listen to, which I think is a weak argument when you're getting outstruck.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
failing your primary game plan.
Well, and then the third judge gave rounds 1, 3, and 5 to Hermansson. That's how he gave him the 48-47, which
like, that's literally laughable. Like, I almost just literally spit out my water. Like, there's just it's sketchy. Like it's fuckery. Like, that's fuckery.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like, it makes no sense to score. Like, maybe you coin flip round 5 for him, or maybe you coin flip round 1 because they neither guy really did anything.
Yeah, rounds.
But to give him 1, 5, and 3 is like, what are you watching?
3, I won't even listen to your argument. Rounds 1 and 5, I'll listen to your argument and then disagree with it and pick it apart. Round 3, I'm not even like, you're not even getting your mouth open. I'm telling you to shut the fuck up as soon as you start trying to argue round 3 for Hermansson, which, like I said, rounds 1, round 5, I'll hear your case, Your Honor. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, past that, bro. It was just wild. I mean, next for Strickland, though, I think like the bigger picture of this whole weekend was he's essentially going to be the next guy up, unless, and I will say this was to his detriment, this wasn't the most exciting performance.
No,
so if Kennedy or Brunson had like a firefight and one guy goes and just like gets a big KO or there's a big flashy moment, That's probably the guy that fights for the title next.
Oh, I'll go. I'll say that's not even like a theory. I think honestly, I'll go as far as to say maybe this is a hot take. Sean Strickland eliminated himself from contender like ship.
Yeah, that's almost how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, he added an extra step. He needs one more fight now.
Exactly.
I think I feel that way.
Yep.
I think the fans feel that way. I think the promotion feels that way. Like I don't think there's a chance in hell, barring injury or freak scenario or one other factor that I'm going to introduce here in a shortly. I don't know if you've heard about it yet. But barring something weird happening, I think it's out of Cannonier and Brunson. Like seriously, and because Strickland, he said himself. I mean, his first words after the fight was, "I fought like a pussy. I fought like a bitch. I was too worried about getting the win bonus." I mean, he made some fair points. And another thing, I think there was like this unfair pressure for like a banger because Strickland talks so crazy. And if you don't know, just YouTube Sean Strickland interview and have your ear muffs on your kids because it's going to be wild and you know, trigger warnings galore. But like, but what I'm getting at is that's never really been his fighting style. Now, granted, he will march forward and he will engage. Saying that he's, you know, he fights like Dominic Cruz or anything, but like what I'm saying is he's never been like, he doesn't fight as wild as he talks. He fights like we were talking about this a little bit on the last podcast that we did, but like he fights very fundamentally sound. He always has. He throws straight punches. He has phenomenal striking defense and phenomenal takedown defense. Like he's never fought like a Shane Burgos. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like
or a Rosa.
Yeah, he talks so wild that I think people just like in their mind's eye like
see him as a wild fighter, but he's super disciplined when it comes down to his fighting.
It's like whenever I saw Strickland Hermansson, yeah, I was excited for this fight for like the implications, but like I low-key had like snooze warning. Like I had like I didn't see this being that like because the styles, right? So like either Hermansson's gonna grapple him, right, and Brunson him and keep him down, or gonna kind of do what Strickland did. I mean, I kind of expected a slightly more violent version of it, but he still like that's how it was gonna look if he kept it standing, right? So like I didn't really see a finish unless it was a sub for Hermansson, and I didn't see the sub happening for Hermansson. So I don't know. I kind of like forecasted a little bit of this snooze